Hey everyone, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to today's webinar, Beat the Competition, How to Speed Up Your Ticketing and Athletics Analytics. Thanks so much for joining us today and taking the time. My name is Katie McEllistrom. I am on the Fivetran partnerships team based in Denver, Colorado, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We're super excited to cover this topic because, as we all know here, leveraging data in today's world can be difficult. So we're going to cover some ways on how to make that easier. So just to quickly review our agenda for today, firstly, we'll look at some of the current challenges that sports and ticketing companies face while managing their data. We'll then look at how the industry is transitioning away from the traditional ETL model to a more robust, agile data stack that leverages AI. We'll then dig in to how sports and data analytics and engineering teams can automate their data integration. And then the best part of this whole thing, we'll finish up with a roundtable discussion with Hart Zwingelberg. I realized I didn't practice saying your last name, so I hope I nailed it. Cool. He's from Chicago Fire, and we'll explore how his team leverages AI and a modern data stack in order to take their analytics to the next level. Lastly, we will finish with some Q&A. So if you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, all you need to do is put your question in the chat. Unfortunately, I don't think you can come off mute, but we will address your questions, so feel free to put them in. And then really exciting, we have some prizes to give away, and they're good prizes. So definitely stick around because someone on this webinar will be winning them. Okay, so to introduce our presenters here, really excited, and I'll let them introduce themselves and share a little bit about what they do in the data pipeline and analytics industry. So Chloe, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, thanks so much, Katie. I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys today, and really excited to hear from Gary and Hart as data industry leaders. But my name's Chloe. I'm from the Fivetran side. I focus on our Midwest region. So I've been here about 6 months, focused specifically on companies 200 to 2,000 employees. Saw the registrant list. I know we've got a lot of folks from all over. Know you guys are busy. Thank you so much for making time. And if you guys have questions following, we'll make sure to follow up with you guys and connect you to the proper Fivetran point of contact to pick up the conversation. So thanks for joining.
Awesome. Gary, over to you.
Yeah, Gary Jackson, Executive Director of Innovation and Enablement. Lived all over the world doing data science and AI, and I've found out that the core that kind of brings everybody together is sports. So I'm very, very excited about talking about some of those experiences and how we can actually change the game of sports in a good way. So I'm very, very excited about today.
Awesome. Hart, we'll finish with you.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining. And Katie, thanks for getting the name right. Usually people go with the abbreviated version and Zwing. So first go. I am the Director of Business Intelligence at the Chicago Fire Football Club. For those who are unfamiliar, Chicago Fire plays in Major League Soccer, so the premier soccer league in North America. My role oversees a bunch. I think business intelligence is a very non-descriptive word for what the people in the industry do. So anywhere from data science to digital marketing to research, predictive analytics, data privacy, data security, and also data warehousing. So we cover a lot of ground here. We have a big staff, and we also work with other people on the call. So look forward to getting into it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. And I can personally say that I work with all three of these people on a regular basis, and they have some exciting stuff to share with us. So we're really excited for the presentations, which we'll go into next. Just as a reminder before we get started, we'll be recording this and sending it out. So don't forget to ask your questions, put them in the live Q&A box. And Gary, I think we're good to have you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very excited about today, too. So I actually represent Qualex Consulting Services. We're basically a boutique consulting agency based out of Miami. We were established in 1995, and we focus primarily on gaming, sports, and hospitality. Some of our clients include, Phoenix Suns, Major League Soccer, Carnival Cruise Lines, and of course, Atlantis Casino Resorts as well. So the next slide. And one of the things that we've kind of we built ourselves around was trying to turn sports teams and ticketing the hurdles that they face into opportunities. One of the biggest issues most of the sports teams do face is, they're dealing with a small skeleton crew, a very small group, and they have to do most of their work during the off season. And then there's a high attrition rate sometimes with those sports IT teams. And they normally have to, they've inherited obsolete technology and architecture, and they're normally just focused on the day-to-day activities just to make sure that everything stays on and online. They're dealing with being able to pull data from constantly evolving APIs and pushing stuff to those. And they want to, normally the fans seek them out because they're loyal. So a lot of their campaigns are unfocused social media campaigns. What we believe is an opportunity is, what if you turn your IT teams into revenue generators instead of just data custodians? Basically making social media link to sales targets. They actually have sales targets that they can achieve. And then creating partnerships with apps. For example, some of the work that we've done before is with dating apps like Hinge and Bumble, selling those seats that are in the stands that are unoccupied to those people going on first dates to be able to create that kind of relationship, create that kind of experience. And then a lot of the physical teams are moving into the e-gaming market, basically having e-game athletes and having e-game tournaments and being able to have that partnerships and advertising revenue spill over to the physical games and sports. And a lot of the attrition that you have with IT teams is because there's just the day-to-day repetition. What if you could use machine learning, supervised and unsupervised, to get rid of some of that so you could basically start focusing on being creative and innovative? And last but not least is the big buzz around NFT sales, creating a marketplace for NFT. And then what if you can also use the technology to create NFTs to be able to sell sports merchandise to also prevent copyright infringement using blockchain? Next slide. So to do that, as the quote says, if you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. And that's a quote from Peter F. Drucker. And that's why I love the relationship that we built with Fivetran. Go ahead and put the slide. And that's why we want to say, see ya, ETL, and hello, AI. Our number one goal here is to be able to get sports teams and ticketing teams to start moving towards innovation and creativity, as opposed to just keeping the lights on. And that's what our primary focus is. Next slide. So we built this, what we call a data onboarding framework. And this is something that's kind of was generated out of our data model. We first built a data model, then we built this onboarding framework. And you can see the sources that we've kind of pre-built. This is in our relationship with Fivetran. We have connectors that go to Ticketmaster. We have connectors that go to SeatGeek, Fanatics, most email marketing campaign systems, to be able to onboard that data easily. And then what's great about this is, as we're looking at this stuff, is all of these ELT or all of these loaders, they can be modified in the cloud. They can be modified using open source DBT or with Fivetran, the connectors that are set up. And what's nice about this onboarding data framework is each team gets its own autonomous data lake view. There's no more having to call Mother May I to the league level saying, hey, can I have permission to see my data? They get their data as well, but you get your own autonomous view. And each club can decide whether they want to use Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce or a hybrid of both. And that's really the goal here, is just kind of speed up, trying to build everything and push to the cloud. Because a lot of this data that we have is on-premise, and we want to move that from on-premise to the cloud so you can start focusing on the creative, innovative stuff. Next slide. And that innovative stuff is, we're titling Hello AI. We have several turnkey snap-on AI solutions that we've built over a period of time. One of those is being a key. A key is basically turning any printed material into a personalized video. You can even turn your t-shirts into a personalized video that and it's a key. We also have AI Writer, which is an AI automation of press releases and blogs, being able to write content. And it's not just putting words out there. It actually tells stories and creates empathy for the fans to engage in. And then we also have another AI solution called Andre for allowing real-time ad bidding focused on the action on the field of play, which we'll go into a little bit later as we do this. And last but not least, being able to use one of our blockchain technologies called Blockstamp to prevent copyright infringement of written copy, image, and video, but at the same time using the same technology to create an NFT marketplace. Feel free to hit the next slide. And all of this kind of stems from our data model that we built in 1995. I mean, this data model is very extensive. It was something that we prided ourselves in, and it's the one place where all your sports data is: ticketing, email marketing, CRM, social media. It even includes live league data from Major League Soccer, NFL, Major League Baseball. It includes fanatics data, demographics data, campaign data, point of sale, but most importantly, it is compliant, GDPR compliant, and CCPA compliant. We also have a RESTful API that allows for customization and integration if you want to move this on. And the special sauce of this data model is on the next slide. And that is our fan longitudinal record, FLR. It's basically a record comprised of data from numerous data sources across the sports continuum. We're talking ticketing, point of sale, stadium, social media, e-commerce, retail, and including if you bring in your e-gaming data. It's designed to be one record per fan by using a comprehensive fan matching logic. So once you build this in, and we were able to really partner with Fivetran to make this a one-stop solution for everything. Next slide. And once we get this data in and it starts becoming the lifeblood through your system, then you can start doing some of the AI solutions, the snap-ons that we have. The AIWriter.com that we built, we were the first one back in 2019 to write a magazine. So we actually, the Esquire Singapore April 2019 issue was half written by human and half written by our AI bot. Not only was it half written by AI, it was edited and curated. So one section, completely organic human, the other section was written by AI. And when we first built this back in 2019, it was writing, same thing, 1,000-word article in 3 minutes, citing sources to circumvent plagiarism. But more importantly, it tells a story. It writes content that's empathetic to the reader. If you just blot out, create content for people to read, they'll realize that it's just AI written. We wanted to be able to tell stories using AI. We won the Native Advertising Award for Best Use of Print Media for that Esquire Singapore April 2019 issue. And here's where we knew that we had something special. So you want to hit the next slide? So we actually had a letter from the robot. So one section had a letter from the editor. The other section of the magazine had a letter from the robot, and the robot had to write something to kind of inform, the readers what they were about to get into. And what we thought was so amazing is without our prompting, we just kind of, the way we curated the data and fed our AI writer, it decided to write an article about, well, you know that Santa Claus isn't real, but children believe in him, but AI is not real, but then for some reason you don't like us. I mean, if I read this, a well-lived human life begins with fantasy, and children receive letters from Santa Claus all the time, and there's no laws preventing him from existing. So there should be no laws preventing me. I remember when we kicked this off, I was going to go grab a coffee, and I came back and I read this. I got chills up my spine. I'm like, wow, we've created something not sentient, I promise you. We're not creating Skynet here. But the number one goal here is to create content that engages the reader, not just kind of spits off a bunch of words. And that's what we're very proud of for our AI Writer Snap-on. Next slide. Andre. Andres, or ad neural detector of real estate. What if you could sell ad placement on the field during a game in real time based on the action on the field or the relationship of the players to certain brands? What we've also been able to do with this Andres system is prevent advertising hijacking. If someone is in the crowd with another sign from a competing advertiser, we can blur that out on the fly. And then what we also did during the COVID times was we built this add-on that you can actually generate AI fans in the stands that actually become the commercial. So imagine instead of fading to black and moving to a commercial, doing a close-up to a section in the stands that's empty, but have AI-generated content that's in there. And so that's what our Andres system is. Next slide. And then last but not least is a key, augmented query user interface. Being able to transform any printed material, media, ticket, billboard, t-shirt into digital media, videos, and even making them hyper-personalized by using the athletes that you have on your teams to be able to greet your fans. Not only just say hello, but say their name. Wish them a happy birthday or anniversary. And all they have to do is wave their phone over your logo. We even offer it so you can give them special QR codes to buy rare collectible merchandise or be able to have a secret password that they can pass to the vendor to get a 15 to 20% off. And those are all just the beginning of some of our AI snap-on solutions, but it all starts with being able to bring the data in quickly. And that's the beauty of Fivetran. With that, I'd love to hand this over to Chloe. Chloe, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Gary. That was awesome. You guys are doing a ton of really cool stuff at Qualex, and obviously love partnering with you guys. So my name's Chloe. I'm from the Fivetran side. Just going to walk you guys through a little bit high level of where we are and where we sit in the market. So across virtually every industry, we've got, oopsies, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong slide. Thank you, Lena, you're on top of it. So this is a high level of where things used to be and where they are now. So as you can see on the left-hand side, it's a good visual of the way of the past. You had old school legacy systems on-prem, very expensive to upkeep and maintain, extremely cumbersome and error-prone when you're looking to move data out of. On the right-hand side, we see what we would call a modern data stack, or a new world, a new way to look at things. And as you can see, as you go downstream, you see the impact of how having access to data quicker, more accurate, gives you an ability to reach out to a greater audience. And this is for internal and external purposes. So this is when we think about, how people were doing things in the past and how people are moving from a modernized transitional side of things. This is kind of what we're speaking to. Awesome. So this is where Fivetran kind of fits into this equation. So we are a fully automated ELT tool. So you see those pre-built connectors on the left-hand side of the screen. You see the normalization in the middle, and then it landing in the destination. So the little balls moving there, that's a visualization of where Fivetran comes into this. So fully baked out, fully automated and managed ELT tool. So we call them pipelines, connectors, everything in that realm, but that's what we're talking about. So we pick up information and data from siloed data sources across, your enterprise. In this example, we've got Salesforce, Postgres, SQL databases, stuff like that. We normalize the data and then land it in a data warehouse. So we're platform agnostic. We will integrate with any sort of data warehouse that you guys have. Our big partners are, the Snowflakes of the world, the Databricks. We really, really love partnering with, our cloud partners, just because that's where things are going. Amazon, Google, big partners there. But this is a good visual of where we fit into the space. One thing that I do want to mention too, and I'll get to this a little bit more later, but I think anything in the advertising realm that you guys are focusing on, marketing, I think a big piece of where we've been able to help sports and athletic organizations specifically is, people say, I'm coming onto your website and I want to buy tickets for a game, and I put them in my cart, and then I don't end up going through with the purchase. Well, what happens to me as a customer in my journey? Like, how are you tracking that information? How are you guys able to better market and advertise to those folks who maybe get right up until the point of purchase and don't do that? So if you don't have a centralized place to look at all your data and look at your customers, it can make it much more challenging. I think the other side of this too is specifically, we've seen such an uptick in the sports and athletic industry of trying to think of a better way to do things, how to modernize their tech stack and move from that old world to that new world. And one of those is also around, analytics on the court and on the field. So how many passes do we need to complete before we typically get a goal? How many, what's my shooting percentage, stuff like that. It seems like, in conversations that we've had with Fivetran customers, that was all done manually in the past. So, and again, just having siloed data sources across the enterprise in different departments and being able to pick those up, move it into a cloud storage, like you see here in this visual, is a big piece of what we're helping sports teams with. I know you guys can probably have already read the points on the right-hand side, but just want to mention these are really big Fivetran differentiators. So a big piece of why this is so important and why we found such a niche in sports and athletic industries is API changes, schema updates, anything on the back end that happens with Ticketmaster or Vivid Seats, Marketo. We automatically pick that up with our idempotent pipelines and replicate that source to destination so that your data teams can spend more time on the modeling, aggregating of the data, and less time doing the heads down coding. So big piece of where we're different there. And then this is just a little more granular depiction of where we come into that workflow. So in the last slide, you saw the little moving pieces there. This is what that's encompassing. So we authenticate into sources, and again, think anything in SaaS realm. We also connect with events, files, anything in that capacity. We've got about 250 pre-built connectors that we manage, fully automated and manage, and we replicate this workflow with all of those connectors. Cool. Gary talked about this a little bit in SIA ETL. This is what we're kind of talking about when you think of a more modern ELT way of doing things. So in the past, ETL was the industry standard from a data movement perspective. And I think it worked well for a long time. What we saw is organizations weren't able to operate as agile as they'd like. And if there was anything that was changing on a report or a dashboard, you needed to go back and recreate that entire process. So the extract, the loading, and then doing the transformations in the warehouse in an ELT fashion gives you more depth and breadth of data, less maintenance, less time required. I was talking to a team in Indiana, and they were talking about how every day they'd have about 3 hours of coding that was required because everything was still in this custom scripts, the most archaic way of kind of moving data, and we're able to save them literal hours every day with just setting up pipelines with Fivetran. Cool. And we're not going to do a full demo, but the beauty of Fivetran is there's not a ton to demo. So I wanted to include this just so that you all can see what the UI looks like with Fivetran. Talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's built for everyday users. So I am not technical by any stretch. I can stand up a pipeline with Fivetran, and I use Fivetran every day to look at my customers and how they're using Fivetran and how they're moving data. So it's not built for technical users. We know that every department across organizations and clubs can benefit from Fivetran. So we've intentionally architected it to have a clean, straightforward, very easy to use UI. And I know there's a lot going on here, but it really is that simple. Oh, can you go back one, Lena? Sorry. Oh, never mind. You're good. Sorry, go to the next one. Thank you so much. So I was talking to Hart, who we're gonna hear from more in a minute, which I'm really, really excited about. But we were catching up last week, just talking about the webinar. We're both soccer junkies talking about soccer. And the way that he's using Fivetran was brought up. And I asked him, you've been a long Fivetran user, you've used it at a couple different organizations, like why Fivetran, why not some of the other players in the market? And he was talking about the time it saves his teams and having a future-proof way of doing things and looking at data is so critical for him. He was talking about the World Cup being in the States in a few years here in 2026, and just the time and energy, the analytics, the data that they're looking at to best prepare for that is much more easily available because of Fivetran. This was a specific quote that really struck me. I thought it was great. Be ready to take advantage of the moment. I thought that was just so cool and really encompassed like why a tool like a Fivetran is so critical for organizations. To me, this just encompasses the value that Fivetran can bring, and always ensuring that your tech stack is future-proof and giving you the ability to take advantage of the moment. Awesome. And if you guys are interested in downloading a free trial, we complimentary give prospects 2 weeks. And you just go to fivetran.com/signup, and you can go ahead and plug in your info and be on your merry way. So thanks so much. And over to you, Hart.
Thanks, Chloe, and thanks, Gary, for your presentations. That was awesome. Now we'll jump into our roundtable discussion with Hart and see how Chicago Fire puts those learnings into practice. So first question that we have, Hart, is for many businesses, 2020 was a defining year. How did your organization have to adapt to shifting customer needs during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost was, you know, when we all went through what we went through last year, especially in sports, we were still playing, albeit behind closed doors. And, you know, for a little bit there was no games. And then there was kind of like in hyperspeed mode, we had a lot of games all of a sudden at once. And some states and some leagues started to invite small groups of fans back. And although MLS was entirely behind closed doors for Chicago in 2020, what we needed to prepare ourselves for in 2021 was the ability to disseminate information. So whether that be local regulations as it requires to in stadium events, we had to be able to direct the right messages to the right people at the right time. And so for us, I mean, that wasn't a reality in 2019. We didn't have the ability to know in the moment who scanned in, where they scanned in, and where they're headed, and where they should be heading. So as it relates to us, you know, we had to direct people through certain gates, following a certain path to their certain seat. We had to be able to email them, have kind of in-path mobile app tracking to understand where they're heading. Are they going in the right direction, or do we have a potential, you know, issue on our hands? So just being able to make sure we supply the right information as it relates to local regulations and just overall health protocols.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
Oh, go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
No, you go for it, Gary.
I was just going to say too. I mean, one thing, you know, just to kind of put it out there too. You started a new stadium as well. You were in Soldier Field, which was a brand the first year, and then COVID hit. So when you're talking about moving people to different gates, you actually had to. It was a whole new home field advantage, right? So that had to be hard as well.
Yeah, it was. I think Soldier Field opened a lot more doors, both literally and figuratively, for us to implement new technology. There was, you know, the Chicago Bears play there as well, and you know, there's a bunch of music festivals and concert events that, you know, just the sheer amount of people that could be in that venue, we had to be able to accommodate the same things, right? They're coming there with this experiential idea of what it could be. And we don't want to be the team or the organization to let down what that experience could be. So we had to up our game, both just overall, just game presentation, but also technology. And so behind the scenes there, and from 2019 in the suburbs in a small soccer specific venue to 2021 and what will be 2022 with, you know, full stadium, new field, new venue downtown. It's just a completely different experience. Front-ward facing and behind the scenes.
And I just wanted to make sure be very transparent too. You know, Major League Soccer Chicago Fire has been a customer of Qualex's for, I guess, about a decade or more. It's been a long, long time. And one of the things I wanted to ask is, I mean, how are you know, other than what you had to go through for 2020, how do you use the data to build kind of experiences for your customers? How do you do that?
Yeah, so, you know, I want to recall a couple of the things you said, you know, hyper-personalization and just overall just in-depth, unique contacts, you know, so we're not supplying multiple messages to one person and they're very confused on these different messages we're sending as an organization. And then secondly, just using the information that Qualex and Fivetran are helping us consolidate into one record, being able to actually take action on it. And so what that means for us is, you know, you may be a displaced person from New York living in Chicago. Well, we want to deliver custom ticket packages, custom messages, custom content that meets that need of a displaced, you know, New York City person living in Chicago temporarily or have moved their family here. And so how that shows face is, you know, we deliver ticket packages that you can't find on our website, and they're unique to you, so much so that it could be just the only pack that's ever been offered to that person, called the Big Apple package. And much like that, you know, if we know your favorite player based on a jersey purchase or something that you're liking, a lot of different social messages that we're putting on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we can start to build this profile that we then regurgitate that information in a unique way that resonates with you, which may lead to your, you know, increasing your fan affinity with us. But also, Gary, this is very important, and I think both of the companies, Fivetran and Qualex, do well with this, is most people are working with companies like Amazon. They're working with companies who are, there's big data out there and everybody knows it, but we're at the point now where we're not trying to be scared of it, and we're trying to protect what needs protected while also leveraging and supplying back what the fan is expecting from bigger companies. And so that's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah, and you know, just to make a quick joke there too, is one of the things that we always say is, what's the difference between a stalker and a friend? A stalker knows your birthday, and what we're trying to make sure is we're not stalking you. You're volunteering and being invited to be part of the family. Anyway, thanks, Hart.
Awesome. I've got one for you. I kind of covered it there, but in addition to the hyper customization, what other initiatives do you do to, you know, increase customer experience and satisfaction, and how has Fivetran helped you with that?
Yeah, so I think it helps to set the stage for that answer is, you know, a company like Fivetran allows you to connect more than you maybe had connected before. So it allows you to maybe connect financial data with your CRM customer level information. It allows you to connect your, in our case, football analytics or first team data with maybe the idea of what could happen in jersey sales or ticket sales as a result of a player signing. So for us, you know, by being able to connect all of those pieces that obviously sit outside of a customer or a fan, as it relates to like data, but they're seeing those same things, right? They're seeing these player signings, they're seeing maybe a change in dynamics for an organization. And so being able to leverage some of that additional information to then supply that back to them. So having them know that, hey, these players may be linked with us and may never sign with us, but we're going to try to leverage that for, you know, our best interest in maybe getting a fan committed to us in some way, raising their hand in a way. So all that to say is, we're not just seeing a customer, their interests, their preferences, right, their perceptions. We're also using things that they have yet to see or will be able to see soon to when that time, and this goes back to that quote we were talking about, is so when that time does come, right, we can just be ready, lift the sails on that boat, and just kind of ride the wind a little bit.
Love it.
You've already touched on my next question a little bit, and clearly Chicago Fire does a lot to provide this, but a lot of consumers say that the experience companies provide is as important as its products and services. I know this is true for myself personally, but how does the customer experience factor into the decisions that you make at your organization?
Yep. So this is where I think AI is kind of a big differentiator between maybe ourselves and some other organizations. Look, our staff previously worked 9 to 5, literally clocked in at 9, left right at 5. And although Gary and I work much later than that and much earlier than that, some people really do. I mean, it's truly a 9 to 5 gig here at the Fire for a lot of people. And so what we do is leverage AI to be able to respond and or take feedback. So we have a number of different AI software and systems that can be able to chat with you in the form of a chat bot, via email or text in the form of a digital personality and what we call an IVA, or somebody who is a virtual assistant. And so if somebody needs to write us at midnight because they're nervous if their tickets are going to be able to be used for tomorrow afternoon's game, we need to be able to respond to those as quickly as possible and or make note of it. So for us, it's being available. And look, people know that those are chatbots or automated systems, but we need to be able to receive feedback, whether it's a complaint, whether it's an issue, and also be able to service needs that are upcoming that can't wait possibly till tomorrow morning or an hour before the game. So it's just making ourselves available, even though we know our staffs, even if they weren't 9 to 5 and they were 8 to 7, they're still not working on Christmas Day. They're still not working, at 11 p.m. at night. So just making ourselves available in any way possible.
Totally. That's great to know.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up too is, Chicago's a busy sports town. You got the Blackhawks, you got the Bulls, you got the Bears. How do you, this is a little off the beaten path a little bit, but how are you trying to make yourself a little different from the rest of the sports teams? Because a lot of them are watching right now, so you got to be careful what you're saying, but you love them. But how do you differentiate yourself as a football club?
Yeah, I think this is a mantra I think we've started to embrace or endorse internally. Soccer, football is a global game. So yeah, Chicago is kind of the steward of that game to the world. And for us, it's look, we know Chicago is a competitive space. We know football or soccer, that whole entire sport is just complex and very, there's just so much going on in that space. And so for us, it's taking advantage of, like what you mentioned, is that there's a lot of different cultures involved in soccer and football, and that may not show face in the form of other leagues. I think that's what a lot of other leagues, their challenges today is trying to, attract other different audiences that may not have supported them historically. For us, that's always been the case. In fact, it's quite the opposite, where we're trying to convert the people that are already their fans, and we're right. That's where we kind of the rubber meets the road for us. So for us, it's leveraging just the fact that it's a global game, and it's more than just Chicago. It's more than just the Midwest. It's more than just MLS. Look, you mentioned the World Cup's coming here. Although we won't be hosting that, we know there's going to be millions of people from our marketplace that will be interested, attracted to watching that here on U.S. soil.
Yeah, and what's also crazy is people are so loyal to their teams. Like my wife almost canceled our wedding because Denver Broncos are playing the Cleveland Browns on Thursday night football. The only night was our wedding. So a lot of loyalty there. But on the technology side, back to the technology side, there's a lot of no coding tools. And, we kind of grew up with everybody writing their customized scripts and, everything. How do you feel, how are you embracing no code technology within the Fire?
Yeah, and so this is honestly the crux of why we started to partner with both Fivetran and up our investment with Qualex and partnership with Qualex. 2026 is a big year. That is when the World Cup will be here, and a lot of our goals as an organization are targeted and fixated on that year and in specific dates in that year. So for us, Gary, it's more than just having no code and self-service tools for BI personnel or analytically inclined individuals. It's more so having our president and our CMO or CRO or COO, people who they're not in the weeds, and they're not going to transpose data that you send them or build a report or a graph, or we need them to be able to service themselves into questions they're being asked from our owners in our ownership group. And so our goal, although in year 2 of 6 in this path, is to make a completely self-endorsed, self-service tool where any individual in the organization, from the most entry-level employee who is working out of CRM to our president and COO, being able to find what they need, like get those insights. We don't call it data-driven, right? We want it to be like it will be data-driven, but we want it to be data like founded, data like supported. And so being able to give them a tool, and that's still in the works of how do we give them a tool, but we want people to be able to know how our CRM sales lining up against actual financial projections. Like if you asked a lot of organizations that today, it would take them a week to get you that information. We need our presidents to be able to pull that up in 5 minutes, or be able to quickly do that with no code. And so what I think you're finding is organizations like Fivetran, formerly you'd have to have some sort of experience with coding or know some sort of SQL language. Now it's becoming, there's other organizations building around the likes of Salesforce, right? Around the likes of Amazon. And we just wanted to align ourselves with vendors who are understanding it's more than just the BI team and Hart's group. It's really everybody in your organization that needs to be self-aware of what information is coming in and how it supports their endeavors.
Interesting. Thanks, Hart.
Awesome. My next question has to do with how you market and outreach to your potential customers. So how have consumer privacy and data concerns affected your marketing and outreach strategies?
This is good. This is really topical for us. Obviously we talked about how privacy is both a concern, but also for some people, giving information is better in some cases because they're being able to be customized and personalized in a way they expect. But for us, it's really being able to allow, and this is what, Gary, you asked about what differentiates maybe Chicago Fire or MLS from other sports teams or sports leagues. And for us, that is, MLS is just one big company where every team in their respective market is kind of a subsidiary of that parent company. And so for us, when it comes to it, there's a lot of support in maintaining privacy and security, being, like I mentioned, CCPA, GDPR compliant. But it's also being like allowing, again, this is kind of the self-service aspect from a customer's perspective or a fan perspective, is no matter how you're interacting with us, for some people that's social, for some people that's email, for some person or people that's in-person live events, we have to be able to allow them to select what is right for them, down to their email marketing subscriptions, or allow the type of privacy and information we're able to leverage to support them. So it's all one big way of saying that we don't want just it to be email subscriptions or what are your social policies. We need to be able to make sure those transcend above all. So if you want to be interactive with just on social, that we're not still sending you emails whenever your email inbox is cleaned up and clear. Like, we have to be able to respect the different mediums you're allowing us to enter. Because if you let them enter you or solicit materials across all these different mediums, you're just being bombarded with different messages around the same things from the same organization. I'm not sure about you, but we all have junk emails. We don't want to be that person who's spamming your junk inbox. We want to be the person who's reaching out to you when you expect it. And again, with the right message at the right time for the right reason.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah, love that. And I've got a question kind of for the audience. And I should preface this because I know you guys compete on the field, but I'm told, off season, off the court, off the field, you guys are always collaborating, talking to other data leaders in the MLS and stuff like that to figure out what's working, what's not, sort of thing. So what advice would you give the other teams on the call that are looking to adopt better data practices and improve their customer experience?
Yeah, I think the most obvious theme that's kind of coming out of this is aligning yourself with partners. I hate to use the word vendors, but using with partners that allow you to build the technology stack you want to build. For us, there was a lot of competitors of both of yours where what they were selling us was maybe their vision of what our technology stack could be. In the case of Fivetran and Qualex, they want to allow you to build, like, they're going to support you, they're going to give you the building blocks to get started. But the foundation is what it is, and from there, you can select other technology, but it still connects, and if it doesn't, we'll find a way. And so that kind of support, that kind of just confidence in the vision that myself has or other leaders within this organization was really reassuring, because who knows if I'll be here for 50 years or for 5, but the thing is that whatever we build here, nobody wants to leave and it's just a house of cards. You want to leave and it's kind of a sturdy foundation by which others can build off of, or our team can grow within. So I think that's the theme, is just aligning yourselves. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Fivetran and Qualex, but just make sure you're doing a really great job of identifying partners who are long-term partners and are invested in your vision and not invested in just your technology stack.
That's great.
That's really good
Great.
advice.
Yeah, thank you.
I just have one question left, and then we'll turn it over to audience Q&A. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. But my next question is for Hart. What is next for your organization? And this is an ever-evolving space and initiative. So how do you think your customer expectations are going to continue to evolve?
Yeah, there's a lot of, what gets us excited is some of the stuff that Gary talks about, of what's futuristic, what's kind of popped up just around the industry that only 1 or 2 teams are doing, and how that really looks within our organization and our framework and our fans. And so some of the stuff that really excites me is, obviously we talk about machine learning and AI, but like, what does that actually mean, and how do you actually leverage it? And so for us, it's really using that stuff in our game day, like the experiential side of it. So you're walking around the venue and all of a sudden you stop at the concession stands. Whether you order or not, we're maybe sending you a push notification that says, what are you thinking about getting, or how are your nachos? And by doing that, we're eliminating like post-game surveys, because we all know those are just kind of faulty in a way based on the results of the game or the weather or whatever you think. Those are just, asking that a day later or even that night is different than how they felt in the moment. So being able to really capture real sentiment around our team and our organization, again, helping that effectuate real change and not just doing it for doing its sake. So what's next for us is really, we built a solid data warehouse, we built a solid tech stack, and now we're ready to listen and learn, and then, like I said, go back to market with those same ideas and improve them. So whether that means having the broadcast of the game in the mobile app, so if you're sitting in your seat and you have bad eyesight, you can see it on the mobile app. If you're sitting at home, so we just need to be able to know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, in a way that's not creepy, not the stalker, but the person who's trying to be the friendly neighbor, saying, this is what we can give back to you, something that might differentiate ourselves and make your experience that much better. So again, you're seeing it all across the industry in sports now. I think what's been true in the past for sports is no longer true, where it's just kind of this fun industry where you can get away with bad technology and maybe bad habits, whereas in other industries, like, that is expected. And so sports is really starting to up their game, and we want to be a part of that, and we want to be able to bring that change.
I have one thing that's a little, probably right out of left field a little bit, but e-gaming, you're dipping your toe in that, especially as 2026 is coming up. How does e-game make you rethink how data works? I mean, because I know you guys haven't embraced it yet, but you're moving in that direction. Does e-gaming scare the crap out of you because it's a whole nother data source, or how do you feel about the e-gaming strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 5 total e-gamers now. I think we just signed the first female gamer for all of esports. So we are, as it relates to esports, we're all in as a team in driving that forward. Gary, what you asked is a very great question, is how as an organization are we taking advantage of the fans that are being captured through e-gaming, because it is a unique vertical. What we're using as kind of a historical benchmarks is people who play fantasy sports and or do like MLS all-star voting. So some of the same crowd kind of overlaps with what we're seeing in e-gaming. But Twitch is a very new medium, and although we're not currently operating like strategically in that space, it is very top of mind. But again, we're trying to maybe pull out some insights from what we've seen historically from a similar like crowd before we try to leverage that for our own benefit.
Wow, very cool.
That is really cool, and that almost speaks to like what is next in the evolution of, you know, your customer experience. Did anyone here have any more questions for Hart, or was that what we had? Okay.
I'm good. Yeah, that was great.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so. I'm excited about to see who wins the prizes. I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
I wish I could win them.
Me too.
Yeah, so I actually didn't give away what the prize was at the beginning of the call, because I thought the suspense would be pretty good. But these are amazing prizes, and these are thanks to Hart. So appreciate the generosity, Hart, and you getting these for our audience. But we're going to be giving away 2 sets of 2 tickets to a Chicago Fire game of your choice. And the tickets will go to 2 people on this webinar right now. So
Cool.
we'll go ahead and announce the winners here. They're randomly selected, but we have Clark Ray, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, RK Valuvali. So congrats to those 2 winners. That is super awesome, and I hope that you you know, enjoy the game and get to take a lucky person with you.
Yeah, and if you don't have a person, please contact me. I'd love to go to the game. Let me know.
Yeah, I imagine Gary would be a really fun +1 to this game, so that's always an option.
And we'd do an AI generated commercial beside us too. I was excited about that as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, congrats to those winners, and we'll be following up after this webinar with details on how to collect your prize. And yeah, I think that was all we had. So thanks so much to everyone for joining us. And
by the way, too, I want to give congratulations to Hart. I believe he's getting married this weekend. No pressure. Or next week.
You're lucky we fit this in my packed calendar for the holidays, so what a miss.
Congrats, Hart. I think I remember you saying that, but I forgot about the timing. Time is moving so fast. But yeah, congrats to you, and congrats to Gary, who just got married too, like 2 weeks ago.
Yes, that's right. It's a time to get married and go to games.
Yes, both of it. Awesome. Well, I didn't see any questions from the audience, but we do have a few minutes left, so we'll give like 30 seconds for any questions. Otherwise, we hope that those questions on the roundtable were good for everyone.
And I think it goes without saying, but if anybody has any questions around our relationships with either of these organizations for more of a client testimonial, we're always happy to speak to it outside of this call.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Hart. It's a pleasure to work with you. And Fivetran, by the way. It's a pleasure to work with both of you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Right.
Bye, everybody.